All systems go. Clear for liftoff.
What is going on, everybody? We are back for a Friday edition of the NBA show. Got my man here with me, as always, Matt. Matt, bring you in right away. How was your All-Star break? How's everything going for you?
Yeah, man, break was good. Nice reprieve from NBA because, NBA gets draining every day. I love the everyday sports in DFS, but NBA certainly a lot of work goes into playing every night. It's not like some of the other sports where you can kind of set lineups and forget it. NBA is a grind, so the break was nice, but definitely missed being on here with you, Title, Ham. Happy you're filling in tonight. Hopefully Ham's doing okay. He should be back next week, I should say. But yeah, man, Friday night slate, always fun. I do like this slate too, as you kind of mentioned before. We'll talk about some of our broader themes, but how was your break and stuff?
Yeah, break was good. Talked about it with you before and a little bit yesterday with Title, but moving into a new spot pretty soon, so just spent a couple of days kind of packing things up, going back and forth. So be in a new location pretty soon, which is exciting for me. But yeah, I'm excited to have NBA back. It's always good to get a little bit of a break, but after like 3 to 4 days of no basketball, I start to get a little stir crazy, and I want to watch basketball, want to talk about it. I love researching, love talking basketball with you and Title and Ham and everybody. So it feels good to be back doing what I love. Before we jump into the slate, how are you feeling about I guess we'll talk about the Cavs when we get there, but you got to be feeling pretty good, 4-0 with James Harden. I feel like there's a lot to like about Cleveland moving forward. They got a really easy schedule in the second half, so they could really jump up in the standings.
Yeah, so I was going to mention that when you asked me about my break, because Cavs are obviously on the up and up for sure. Wasn't that high on them for much of the season, just felt like they were playing pretty lethargic all year, and Garland being in and out didn't help. Suddenly they are able to move him for Harden, and then the other move with the Kings to get Schroeder and Ellis. The Cavs are looking good right now. I think that, honestly, I'm not even biased because I try not to be biased. Like, I don't think they're like the heavy favorite in the East, but I don't see anyone in the East that I think the Cavs like should lose to if they're fully healthy with Mobley back, etc. I mean, Detroit's having a very good regular season, but kind of reminds me of what Cleveland did with Bickerstaff. They win a ton of games in the regular season based on their depth, Detroit that is, and I'm not really sure I see that lasting in the playoffs. We'll see. I think Cleveland for the playoffs right now is set up just as well as anyone else in the East unless Tatum comes back. So it's exciting, man. I mean, you flip a guy in Garland, who I was always really high on, especially offensively, but he just couldn't stay on the court, for a guy in Harden who certainly has his flaws. But one thing that he does for sure is play almost all the time. So just having that, taking the load off Mitchell, I'm excited. I kind of get the sense you feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I think that they have like 1 week coming up pretty soon where they'll face off against some pretty tough opponents. So we'll get a real feel of how
it's tough with all these tanking teams, man.
Yeah. Like I was excited. It feels kind of bad to be excited about Charlotte and Cleveland tonight as like a game environment.
Right.
But I don't think that this is like they're going to be the first test for them, because obviously Charlotte without Bridges, without Diabate, not really playing as well as they have with those guys, and then no Mobley tonight. But there will be a couple games coming up pretty soon that I think we'll get a real idea of how they're going to look in the playoffs. So I'm excited for that for sure. But yeah, the East is fairly open outside of Detroit. I feel like they're kind of separating themselves, at least from a win-loss standpoint, but I do think that the Cavs have a good chance to really shoot up the standings in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I just with Detroit, like just talking about them real quick, like I'll give them all their flowers and kudos for the regular season. I just don't see it in the playoffs. Like they got Cade, who's an undeniable superstar, but who's like who's their next guy to get a bucket when they need it in a big time playoff series? Like Tobias Harris? I'm not sure. I just don't think they're ready yet in the East. And Bickerstaff has kind of shown before, maybe this is where I'm being biased, that like he's a great regular season coach, hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs. Maybe Detroit fools me this year.
Yeah, we'll see. It was nice to get a little bit of experience that year in the playoffs, so that can't hurt them. But I kind of agree with you. The whole sentiment with Detroit is that they don't really have like a true number 2 scorer. Like they'll be.
They're not as good as the 04 Pistons either, as someone's commented on that. Like they're just not. The 04 Pistons is an anomaly, and Cade is a legit superstar. I'm just not sure what else they have outside of him in a like tight Game 6 playoff series against another really good team.
You need shooting when it comes to the playoffs. They don't really have a lot of knockdown shooters. They really don't have any. Like Duncan Robinson, probably their best one, and even he can be really streaky at times. But like Tobias Harris isn't, Asar and Duran cannot stretch the floor, so it'll be tough. Like I think I'm pretty high on them. Maybe they'll get an easy route to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Sure.
I like the Pistons a lot. I love Cade. I love Duran, Asar, all these guys. But yeah, I think that it's pretty fair to question what the ceiling is with them. All right, we'll jump into the slate, but let me say what's up to people first. Got our guy Jordan here as always. Deacon, Wins a Lot, William, Parabay, BG, Little Neck, Sean, Ricky Rose, Al Money, Nikki Diamonds, Nate D, Jake, D Parlay. No, staying in California, not moving to Utah. And yeah, I think that's it. All right, so if we are ready to jump into it, we can. But if you have any quick slate overview to kick things off, I think that would be a good thing to talk through pretty quickly because it's a fairly unique slate. I mean, we have a ton of value, and maybe the slate's a little bit smaller than it looks with the OKC Brooklyn game looking pretty gross. So what are you seeing from like a slate overview standpoint?
Yeah, for me, the big slate overview is, and someone said it earlier in the chat. I think it was Jake Swales. Like value and then spend up on studs. Problem for me is like there just aren't enough studs. Like I don't think that I really like. Not even that I like, just that are there to begin with. Certainly there's Jalen Johnson. I think he might be the only guy over 10K, and there is a lot of really good value tonight. So it's one of those slates where like the goal isn't to have the lineup like with all the best value pieces. The goal is to have the highest scoring lineup. So I kind of got to see as we break it down, like whether that's, playing a bunch of the really cheap value or maybe playing a little of that cheap value and then getting to some good mid-tier plays. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. There's definitely holes to poke in a lot of these spend-ups too. It's always tough when you have this much value, and I think that we're going to be pretty excited about a lot of these plays, and you just don't have salary to spend.
And I do feel like just from doing shows with you, I'm going to give you your flowers right now. I think one thing like you're really, really good at is identifying studs who especially are getting ownership that like have flaws in their respective matchups or whatever it is. Like last night was a great example in Maxey. So just wanted to shout you out there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been I hope that people profited off of that. I get a little caught up sometimes in the projections because it's hard to, that these computers
hard not to,
projections, man. Yeah, they're smarter than you, like they know. But as just like somebody that researches and watches the games, it's hard to get away from projections. Like I hated Nemhard, I hated Neesmith last night, and they just kept getting jammed in my optimizer. So it's a very fine line to kind of walk. But I appreciate the kind words.
It's that fine line, man. You took the words right out of my mouth. And it's tough because I do think, like, as you said, the computer is smarter than me. So, like, I'm never going to question that stuff. But I do think there's a lot of power, especially right now in NBA DFS, and, like, going a little bit away from projections because ownership is so concentrated. And with a lot of teams doing funky stuff, projections can't really account for that totally. So, just interesting talking point, if nothing else. Yeah,
I actually think that's a pretty good point that you make because I was thinking about this the other day and just kind of thinking about the state of NBA DFS right now. Like usually when you get to this point of the season, post All-Star break, post trade deadline, like teams kind of figuring out different rotations, it's very similar to what we see in like the beginning of the season where there's just so much variance in teams' minutes and upside and all these stuff that we talk about a lot. So I think it's a good point that you make. Like you gotta not like take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. Even with what we say on here too, like it's got to be taken with a grain of salt. But we'll jump into the first game. Indy at Washington, back-to-back here for both these teams. They played last night. Washington came away with the win, and both these teams will be obviously tanking, looking to lose. Talked about it last night, but the Pacers are going to be without Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, and Ivica Zubac, and then Q tags on TJ McConnell and Michael Potter, as well as Cam Jones. He played, I think, 14 minutes last night and then sat out in the second half. Wizards pretty much fully healthy minus Alex Sarr and Keyshawn George, but they ran out an 11-man rotation last night. So that's one of those things. I guess it's a big headache. Kind of talked about it yesterday on the Slate with title. You don't want to be super confident in these guys because even Tristan Vukovic, who I had a ton of, he was great in the minutes that he played, but he only played 17 minutes. So you can't be super confident. If he didn't get those 5 steals, it's looking like a really, really bad play at chalk. But yeah, start with the Pacers here. What are you doing? Obviously, I think the optimizer is going to jam a ton of these guys, and this situation could get a lot better if those Q tags do miss.
So yes to both of everything you said, not both, but just everything you said. The only counter I would say is that because of the Memphis-Utah game, specifically Memphis, Indiana, nor Washington, but especially Indiana is going to look like the best team on the slate because that is reserved for Memphis. So this is a really good matchup, obviously. Both these teams are doing such funky stuff with their rotations. It's hard to really trust many guys, if anyone, in this game. That said, price tags are still cheap enough on a lot of guys where you at least have interest. I mean, from Indiana, first 2 guys for me, again, without knowing the questionable guy's status, is going to be Kobe Brown and Jarris Walker. We saw Walker have a monster game last night, priced up a little bit, but clearly still cheap for his upside as he showed last night. So I could get on board with Walker. I don't think he's like a must play on this slate, getting a ton of ownership, but I do think that he looks really, really good and is the Pacers' best player right now. Kobe Brown at 4,300 would probably be the next guy. Just cheap, nice value piece. Again, on a lot of slates, maybe you wouldn't want to pay 4,300 for Brown, but we don't have Jokic tonight. Like, we don't even have Cade. We don't have Giannis, obviously. So, like, a lot of the lower 3K value might not be as optimal as it otherwise would be on some other slates. So Kobe Brown looks good at 4,300. Ben Shepherd is like never a guy I'm going to play. I think you're on the same page there. So at 4,100, no thanks. Like Jay Huff, sure, but I'm worried about the minutes here. I don't trust it at all. I think there's better plays on the slate. So probably for me, playing minimal lineups here, it's Kobe Brown and it's Jarris Walker. And then real quick on the Washington side, and then you can touch on it because there isn't a ton I like. The only guy that I really have a lot of interest in on Washington is Kadari Richmond. From St. John's, played a ton of minutes last night, was really productive in college, 3,200. And why wouldn't he play a ton of minutes tonight? I think Sharif Cooper, kind of in the same vein. He's 1,000 more than Richmond, though. So I'll play Richmond, especially if he's not getting any ownership. How do you see this game?
Yeah, I start with the Wizard side because I agree with you on Richmond and Sharif Cooper in particular. You don't really know. Like, we don't know what the Wizards are going to do with the rotation, but one thing I do know is that they are probably not going to be closing with Trey Johnson, with Bub, Champagnie, and definitely not Koulibaly on a back-to-back. And then you saw Will Riley only play, 3 minutes in the first half and then nothing for like the last 3 quarters, I think. Jameer Watkins was a DNP. I'd expect him to come back to life tonight. But yeah, Cooper and Kadari Richmond and even Alondas Williams were 3 guys that I kind of think that I was thinking to myself, looking at the slate, I wanted to get a little bit of exposure to just because these guys won't really contribute to winning. And Washington wants to lose games, so you might as well play these. I don't know if they are like true NBA level talents. Obviously, they were good in the G League and in college and stuff like that. But a really good matchup against the Pacers. Sharif Cooper is the one that was the most interested in. He had a really, really good role last game, 24 minutes, 24% usage rate, 39% assist percentage, and a team high 4.7 minutes of touch time. So they're really running a lot of the offense through him. So I'm kind of the most interested in him, but like comparing him to some of the point guard, shooting guard value that we'll have later that we'll talk through, probably not nearly as good. But I think that there's some merit to playing 4% of a guy like Cooper if you're MMEing tonight. Same thing for Kadari Richmond and Alondas Williams. Kadari Richmond was really good last game, so they might just reward him with a little bit more minutes tonight. I think Jaden Hardy could be a guy that loses minutes, so that would probably go to those 3 guys. And we have seen before Alondas Williams. I think he was he with the Pistons before, I believe. Not
can't
too
recall.
sure. I feel like he's played in NBA games. And then
I want to say the Heat, but I'm not sure.
I think you might be right. It might be Miami. But I remember seeing him in NBA action before, and he was solid. He's had really good G League numbers, obviously, but is a guy that's more of like a higher usage G Leaguer. So $3K for a guy point guard, shooting guard eligible if you really need to go down that low. Don't think it's too crazy to go to Alondas. And then I agree with you on pretty much everything you said on the Pacers. It's Walker and Kobe Brown as the two guys I'm really looking to. You're banking on extreme efficiency from a guy like Jay Huff because they just won't play him more than probably 26 minutes, I think is where he's capped at. Would be more willing to go to Micah Potter if I need like a power forward center guy, 1K cheaper, has shown a little bit better upside and like similar minute ceiling, but I think there's going to be better value plays, and I'd rather just use up my forward spot with a guy like Kobe Brown, who I think they're going to be playing 30-plus minutes, and then just keep an eye on, well, for one, the starting lineup, but two, TJ McConnell. If he's out, I think they're giving a lot of the point guard minutes to Cam Jones and Quentin Jackson. I wish that they would just play Quentin Jackson like 30 minutes because he could absolutely smash. Like, he's clearly the best player that's active tonight on their roster, and I think they got to work out some contract stuff with him. He's on a two-way, so have to be limiting his games played. But it's just kind of odd that they will only play him like 18 minutes on the games that he does play. All right, anything else in that game where we can move on?
No, it's just funny with Alondas. We were both right. He played one game for Brooklyn in 22-23, got cut. Then he signed with Miami, played a tiny bit, especially in the G League, and then with Detroit. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, kind of interested to see what Washington does.
It's funny, too, because, like, in years past, I mean, not even like 5-10 years ago, like last year or the year before, you'd be talking about these teams with these young players and you know, making a case for them because they'd want to see what they have in these guys. We're like a step beyond that now. We're like the players that aren't even in NBA consideration probably next year. Just they give them the best chance to lose, which is crazy.
Yeah. Any thoughts on the anti-tanking rules that they're probably going to be implementing next year?
I haven't seen any like rule that I think right now looks really good. I think like the tournament they've talked about where, you know, the teams kind of play for the right to the top pick. You know, I think that sounds interesting. And I think you talked about this, like from a viewing standpoint, that sounds amazing. I do think there's some real flaws in that though. Like how incentivized are players going to be to play in that to potentially be drafting their, you know, high lottery or high draft pick replacement guys. I've just heard, you know, kind of counterpoints to everything. I do think that something needs to change. And the best thing I've heard, and I don't know how it would work, was at some point, you know, making it so like kind of the reverse. So like the teams at the bottom want to win to have the higher pick. I don't know if that's plausible, when they could do it, but I do think that something needs to change because the big problem with tanking in the NBA is that it works. So because it works, teams are going to consistently do it. So you have to really like de-incentivize that. And I don't know how it can happen because we've talked about this. You're a Utah fan. I'm a Cleveland fan. Like the only way our teams are getting like top tier talent is through the draft. And to get the top tier talent in the NBA, it's got to be at the top of the draft almost always. So I don't see a perfect solution, but I do think that something needs to change. So that's my long-winded answer. Yeah,
I think that's a good point you make though. Like teams or players not really wanting to play well and potentially let their team draft their replacement that's very true. But yeah, something, I don't know, I guess something's got to change, but a lot of the teams you see that are really good right now are somewhat a product of tanking, like OKC, as much as these OKC fans don't want you to believe that they didn't tank. Like they got Jalen Williams and Chet and Josh Giddey, who they flipped into Alex Caruso all in the lottery. So it's like, I actually don't know if Jada was in the lottery, but either way, Chet was. A lot of these guys that
he was.
He was, okay. But yeah, good point you make there. But yeah, let's jump into next game. Your Cleveland Cavaliers at the Charlotte Hornets. Cleveland is 5.5 point favorites, 229 total, solid total. Both teams on a back-to-back. Cleveland should be pretty rested here. Obviously had the blowout win last night against the Nets, which we all expected. And then the Hornets a little bit shorthanded. Still one more game that they'll be without, or is it two more games without Diabate and Miles Bridges, I think. And then Grant Williams is also out. Kobe White not yet ready to make his debut. Liam McNeely out. Not really anything too big there. But then Evan Mobley will miss tonight after making his return last night. Just a injury maintenance thing. And then Max Strus, man, I feel like he's another guy that they could really, really use. He's just a guy that I think contributes to winning in a lot of ways. Very, very good two-way player. Yeah, but it doesn't sound like he's close.
Dog. He was like their dog.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in Miami, really good with Cleveland last year, but it doesn't sound like he's very close to returning, which is tough because I think that they could really use him right now. But luckily, they did make all those moves at the deadline. Definitely got some more depth. But yeah, what are you looking at in this one? I think that we get to the first game where we can start to choose some studs. You have Donovan, James Harden, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Khan. Even you can group into there your guy Jared Allen, who you've liked a lot recently. No Evan Mobley. Yeah. So what are you seeing on the Cleveland side?
So I think because of the slate and with how much value there is, like the Cleveland studs, as you mentioned, are going to be in play just because you're going to have money to spend. But there isn't like a strong stance I have or that I even really like love these guys that much. It's funny. Charlotte used to be like kind of like exactly like the Wizards, a team you always wanted to pick on. Things have shifted a lot. So I'm not saying I'm afraid to pick on Charlotte, but it's no longer like the best spot in the world, like the best game environment, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've seen Charlotte play in some pretty grindy, slow out games recently. So certainly they have the offensive firepower to give it to anyone, and you could get a game that really shoots out here. So because of that, I'm interested. Because of price tags throughout the slate, I'm interested. But I don't have like I love Mitchell over Harden or vice versa. I think they both look good and project pretty similarly at their price tags. And I think on any given game, you could see one get hot and really take over, or on a lot of spots, they're kind of just going to eat into each other. So I like both them. I don't love either of them, though. If I'm playing one lineup here, I don't think I'd get to either of them. Jared Allen is at least interesting, if nothing else. Still like more expensive than I want to pay for him. But unlike the last show we did before the break, the context of this slate is much different. We don't have like a ton of amazing center value plays. Like there are some good ones. There are some centers that project better from a points per dollar perspective than Allen, but I think Allen's at least in play here in tournaments at 7,100. No Mobley, and then Harden has just unlocked him. They have spoken glowingly of each other since Harden got sent to Cleveland, and we talked about this. Like Harden just makes big men. So because of that, I'm again intrigued in Allen, but not a must for me. All in all, I don't think there's anything from the Cleveland side that I'm sitting here right now being like, I have to play. I think it's more like, to your point, there are really good players on both sides of this game. So I think getting overweight isn't the worst idea in the world. How do you see it? Are there guys you specifically really like here?
Yeah, for me, it's James Harden tonight. I think it's going to be a Harden night. Just looking at some of the matchup stuff, like Charlotte's really bad at the pick and roll, which is Harden's bread and butter. And the reason that we were kind of off him last night was Brooklyn does take that away. He was pretty good from a per minute standpoint, a lot of assists in that game. But I could see him turning into more of a scorer in this one. I would be curious to see what the Hornets do in the starting lineup. If it's Sion James in the starting lineup, I know it's not really like a huge name or like going to move a lot of things, but Sion James has done a pretty good job against Donovan Mitchell this season. I think that they're going to put him in the starting lineup for that matchup. Not saying that James is like a lockdown defender by any means, but if there was a negative to like anything to poke in Donovan Mitchell's matchup, it would be that he's much better than Salon, or like if they would have put Miller or LaMelo on Donovan Mitchell. Anything you want to add there?
No, yeah, just to go on that, you kind of got me excited over there. I don't know why, but they drafted him because of his defense. So like, yeah. He's just a really good athlete, and yeah, it's not like you're like never using guys against him, but I do think that that's a good detractor. And to all your points, I think that, Harden is probably the guy here.
Yeah. So just looking at some of like the head-to-head numbers for these guys against the Hornets this season, actually, Sion James has guarded Donovan Mitchell the second most of anybody this season from a possession standpoint, limited Spida to 16.1 points per 75 possessions and a 41% true shooting percentage. So done a really good job against him. Mitchell has not topped 44 DraftKings points in a game against Charlotte this season. And you look at James Harden, on the other hand, they've been putting Brandon Miller on James Harden a lot. think that they kind of match up together like size-wise, but he's averaging 27.5 points per 75, 10.6 assists per 75. And from a DraftKings scoring standpoint, he's crushed the Hornets, 69 DraftKings points per game against them in 2 games. One of those games was without Kawhi, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but he still went for like 64 or something in the game that Kawhi did play. So he's the guy that I'm going to be bumping up a little bit. I do like him over Donovan. Completely fine with both, but I would give the edge to James Harden tonight personally. But yeah, I agree with you on the Allen stuff. I think that he's probably going to be very good. I don't know if he's going to be great at 7.1K. We'll probably need something more like 50 plus from him, I would think. But yeah, I really like what I'm seeing from him with James Harden for sure. Go ahead.
No, he's just not that guy to give you 50 plus. As much as I like him with Harden now, and he might do it occasionally. Like, you can't count on that ever with Jared Allen. You just can't.
Yeah. I don't know if Mitchell is going to be unplayable with Harden. I think that the numbers have been pretty solid from like a point per minute standpoint. There's going to be games where you see Donovan go for like 45 because Harden's going to be demanding so much attention. I just think that's kind of the reason why they brought him. And been listening to a ton of NBA content, podcast stuff, and everything that all these Cavs beats and like Win Horace and all these smart NBA guys were saying was that it's like the chemistry has been there for them too. Like it's not a like they kind of compared it to when Kyrie got traded to Dallas and there was some lulls towards the end of the games, like in clutch time, not knowing who's going to be the guy to get the possession. Then it kind of just leads to like a bad late shot. Like they both have been pretty good at deferring to one another when they know that they have the better matchup. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm talking a lot about Cleveland because I'm pretty excited about them in the second half. But yeah, I think it was a really, really good trade by them. Anything for you on the Hornets side though? It's back to back, and LaMelo got priced up to almost 9K, and he's getting ownership too, which is not great in my eyes. But yeah, anything over there?
Yeah, I'm not. I guess I could see it lasting just because the slate doesn't have a ton of spend up options, but not really. I mean, these guys are just priced now to a point where they're too expensive. On a slate like this, I think that you can make cases for all of LaMelo, Khan, and Brandon Miller just because they're really good and they can all get there on any given night, but you're overpaying for any single one of them, I think, right now. So, yeah, nothing for me that's a must here. I do think that, like, again, kind of to your original point, like there are just good players in this game. Like both these teams are trying to win, and that means something. So to that point, I get playing guys here.
Yeah. I think if I'm choosing between the trio of LaMelo, Miller, or Khan, it's going to be Miller for me. Just think that he's probably got the best upside of the three, but we've seen all of them get there in different matchups. I just think that it kind of leans the perimeter scores a little bit more. Obviously, LaMelo is going to take a ton of threes, but they're not the same type of threes that Khan and Miller are getting up. I think that's it, though. I think you really only need to be considering those three guys. I don't really believe the Salon projection and value. I just think that it's going to be more of a Sion James night, minutes-wise. I don't think that you're really considering him. All right, I think we spent enough time in that game. Let's go to one that we're probably going to spend a good amount of time on. Utah Jazz at Memphis Grizzlies. Go through the injuries real quick. Utah, a little bit easier. It's no Jaren Jackson done for the year. No Walker Kessler done for the year. Keontae and Nurkic are out tonight. And then Lauri Markkanen got a midday downgrade with a illness tag. So it's definitely a tanking tag for him. On the Grizzlies, they have a ton of injuries. No Ja Morant, no Edey, Brandon Clark, Ty Jerome, Scottie Pippen Jr., Cedric Howard, Santi Aldama, and KCP are all out. They've been without Ja and Edey for most of the year, and Brandon Clark, but we did see Scottie Pippen and Ty Jerome both return pretty recently and play a good amount of the point guard minutes, and then Coward's been a guy that's been in the lineup most of the season, as well as Santi Aldama and KCP. So removing all those guys, there was a lot of not so great NBA talent on this team, but a lot of opportunity, really high team total, really high game total, and a game that they're projected to win with condensed minutes. I mean, there's going to be a lot of ownership going to the Memphis Grizzlies, but for good reason. I'll just touch on the Utah stuff real quick because I feel like it's going to be a little bit easier to break down. I would imagine Lauri misses tonight. Who gets in the starting lineup there is a little bit of a question. I think it's probably going to be Cody Williams, so I would expect a starting five of Collier, Sensabaugh, Ace Bailey, Cody, and Kyle Filipowski. I don't really think that anybody on this team is a must play by any means, but the guys I would have the most interest in would be Kyle Filipowski. I think that he's actually in a really, really good spot here with a chance for a lot of minutes, because I don't think that they're going to be giving Kevin Love or Svi Mikhailuk very much minutes tonight, if any at all. So I feel like the front court minutes are going to be dominated by Flip, and he's the best per-minute producer on the Jazz right now with the current iteration of their roster. And it's been a great matchup. The Grizzlies have become an awful rebounding team. They're really bad with the rim protection. They don't really have a true center on the roster. Like, they're trotting out Kyle Anderson and Omax Prosper and Gigi Jackson as their centers. So it's not a situation where you're going up against like a Jokic or any sort of like real big body down low. So I do like the matchup a good amount for Filipowski if he can stay out of foul trouble, which he should be able to. And then Ace and Sensabaugh just have a ton of scoring upside here. I think that they're going to be the two guys that are doing pretty much all of the heavy lifting on offense. I don't really view Collier as much of a scorer. Filipowski's a situational scorer, like putbacks and maybe some catch and shoot threes, but they're going to be running plays for Ace and Sensabaugh a lot. So I feel like these guys have pretty good scoring upside. But if you want to go through your Jazz, how you're looking at them, I know that you're the Collier whisperer. So any love for the Jazz tonight?
Yeah, I like Collier and I like Filipowski. All your points on Filipowski. And I also like when they play together and they're starting together, because those two play really well off each other. So I like them both a little bit more, presuming they're both in the starting lineup, which they will be. So Collier and Filipowski are my two favorite guys. And then Ace and Sensabaugh. Again, they're facing a team that doesn't have a lot of NBA talent right now. And this should be a really good game from a DFS perspective. The Memphis side is going to get most of the love for good reason, but I'm with you. I like the Utah side here. I like all four of those guys. Won't play Cody Williams here with all the value we have tonight. And I don't really think there's a reason to get any deeper on Utah, but those four guys, the first two, Filipowski and Collier, and then Sensabaugh and Ace, like all four of them, I think are in play in any format, really. Like those guys a lot in tournaments. And then Memphis is pretty messy here, but you can't get away from it. I know we got asked earlier. I got asked if you have to play some Memphis here. I think you do. They look too good here. It just way too cheap price tags in a really good spot. So Javon Small, he's going to be really highly owned, probably the highest player on the highest owned player on the slate, but he should be 3,500, going to play a ton of minutes, projecting depending on where you look for 30 plus fantasy points. So he looks really good here. Omax 3,500 with power forward eligibility, solid value here. Those two guys look like the two best cheap value plays on the slate. And then you get to like Cam Spencer, Gigi Jackson, mid 5K range. I like those a lot. Like, you don't have to just spend completely down here if you don't want to. You can go with like the Gigi Jackson, Cam Spencers. Kyle Anderson is like kind of in between the really cheap guys and the Cam Spencers of the world, but I think he has a role on this slate. Jalen Wells. I think that the first four I mentioned, Small, Omax, Spencer, and Gigi, I think are probably my four favorite, but I mean, like Meshack at 3,700 is in play. I mean, Hendricks 4K. Like, do you have any really hot take on Memphis here?
Yeah, I think we might view things a little bit differently, but it's not like I disagree with what you're saying. I think all those guys are very, very much in play. But for me, Cam Spencer is kind of separating himself a lot for me on the slate, not even just Memphis as a team. I feel like on the entire slate, he's one of the better plays. Just think he's going to have a really, really, really dominant role on ball with how thin they are now at guard. You take away Ja, you take away Jerome, and Walter Clayton's not ready yet, and then Scottie Pippen Jr. is out. Like, it's going to be a really, really strong role, and I think that there's a chance that he could play a good bit, like 30 plus. This team has been very unwilling to play guys a ton of minutes, which is the only issue I see with playing a lot of these guys at ownership. But at the guard spot, they're extremely weak, mainly point guard. So I think that he's going to have to play a good amount, and will probably overlap a good bit with Javon Small as well. I think those are the two guys I'm pretty in on. I don't really see myself going crazy on like the Gigi Jacksons and Jalen Wells, because I think those are two guys that could not really play as much as we would need them to. For Gigi, I don't know. I feel like it feels a little chasey. Like, I think he's pretty talented. He's obviously still really young. And it's a great matchup, but I just don't I don't know if I think that he's the guy that we need to have tonight. And same thing for Wells. Like, he doesn't really do much outside of scoring. He's not going to pop for like a big rebound or big assist game very often. So those guys will be pretty far down the list for me. And I think the same for Meshack. Just don't really know what to take of him. I think he should start and probably will get more ownership because of it. Obviously projects as a really good value, 6.6 value score for us. But I'm going to take a little bit of the narrative into account here. Taylor Hendricks, a guy that Utah drafted really high, had really high hopes for him as a player coming out of college. And then obviously the injury last year kind of derailed things. And then they traded him. I think that there's a little bit of maybe not bad blood, but I think that this would definitely be a spot where he is going to want to show out against his former team. So a little bit of a revenge narrative. And then for Kyle Anderson, like, he's going to play a lot of center minutes and he knows his team very well, especially the second unit that he'll be going up against. But things kind of left off in a weird place for him too. After he got traded, he kind of talked a little shit about the Jazz and all the tanking stuff after they got fined. So I feel like I don't know, maybe he wasn't happy with his role there. Obviously, he wasn't playing a ton, but he's a guy that we know is an NBA talent and can contribute to a lot of teams, I feel like, if he does get the minutes. So I could see him really filling up the stat sheet, especially when you take into account that this team is going to be pretty thin with guys that can play make. We know that Anderson is a pretty good passer, kind of like can have that like Sengun, Sabonis type of role where they're running plays through him. So I'm gonna rank things as Cam Spencer 1. I think Javon Small 2. I'd have Kyle Anderson and Omax Prosser like 3A, 3B, and then Hendricks, and then like the GG, Jalen Wells, Meshack are kind of down the list for me. But if you want to give your quick ranking, and then I'll go through some rules that I'm considering tonight on Memphis.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Small 1 for sure, just because like the biggest, I think, difference in kind of how we're looking at it, and I do think we look at it pretty similarly, is you said, the minutes question, like the question marks that go into their minutes kind of gives you pause on playing these guys into ownership. I don't disagree with that, but for me, my biggest pause is playing the higher priced guys with minutes question. So like, I like Cam Spencer a lot and his shooting guard eligibility. He's going to be 2 for me, but he's definitely 2 and not 1 for me. Like, Small is 1, Spencer's 2. I do think that those are the clear 1, 2. They're both guard plays, but you can play Spencer at shooting guard. I don't think you have to play anyone else from Memphis here. Not going to be surprised if other guys get there, but I do think that you could kind of order them however you want after that. I think I'm with you in that after them, my 3A and B is going to be Omax, Kyle Anderson. If they were both just centers, it would be Kyle Anderson, but the power forward eligibility obviously helps Omax a lot. GG, it's a price tag thing. I'd love to play him, but I'm not overly excited about playing him at ownership at a mid 5K price tag. I like the Hendricks shout out. I think I'll probably get on board there. Was already in play. 4K looks good here, and then you throw the revenge in. Maybe not left on uncertain terms. I know he was really liked in that locker room, so I dig that for sure. I guess like talking it out with you, like you definitely want some Memphis exposure, but I don't think I want to go overboard with it. Like I think 2-3 guys, if I'm in any like one lineup, like certainly you can play more. You don't have to play more than one guy if you don't want to. I do think that you're probably doing yourself a disservice if you're going into this slate being like, I'm not playing Memphis.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a better chance than not that one of these guys ends up on winning lineups in the tournaments that everybody's playing tonight. So it's just kind of picking through roster construction and how you like them. Like if you need a $3,500 point guard, then play Javon Small. If you have enough for Cam Spencer, then you can play him. So for the rules I'm setting for this one, it's going to be a max 2 of Kyle Anderson, Omax Prosper, and Lovering. If you're considering him, we don't have a projection on him, but we will get one. He's at 3K min price if you need a center, which you probably don't. I think it's a little bit too valuable, but max 2 there. I'm going to be a max 2 of Gigi Jackson, Taylor Hendricks, and Jemai Meshack. And then max 2 of Cam Spencer, Javon Small, and Jalen Wells. Reason being, I'm expecting those 3 guys to take up most of the guard minutes. I think that the Meshack, Hendricks, and Gigi take up most of the 3-4 minutes, and then Anderson, Omax, and Lovering take up most of the power forward center minutes. see if there's any. Yeah, I think you could probably play both those guys in the same lineup. You're going to be getting a bulk of the point guard minutes, and then likely getting a good amount of overlap as well. Any thoughts there on the Small and Spencer?
Oh yeah, I will be playing them together, like for sure. I think to all your points, like Small is so cheap, he's kind of his own entity on this slate, and then Spencer's just a really good play, and I do think they overlap a bunch. So yeah, totally fine. I think that for me, like if I'm just playing one lineup, I'm strongly considering doing that.
Yep. Yeah, max 3 is probably the way to go, but I think that in single entry you can probably get away with 4 guys. Yeah, Kyle Anderson, only center only now. He's pretty much been playing exclusively center the whole season, but is a guy that I view as more of like a small forward, power forward. It's just kind of odd the way that DraftKings does things. Like Alperen Sengun has been a power forward center for basically the last 2 months, and Steven Adams hasn't played in a while, and he's been playing only center recently. So it's just kind of odd there. All right, I think that does it for that game. Unless you have any final thoughts, we'll move on to Miami and Atlanta.
No, that's all I got. One thing I did want to ask you about, I know you talked about him in passing, like thoughts on Collier here, his minutes, like how much do you like him here? He is expensive now, like real expensive.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that's kind of keeping me off. It's a little bit of a sticker shock. Like this is a different situation than we have seen before when he was playing. Obviously he's not going to, I don't think he's ever going to play 48 minutes again this season, but they have depth now. Like they're only missing 3 to 4 rotation guys, and they'll be getting Vince Williams in behind him. So I feel like he probably lands at like the 34 to 35-ish range. And then there's a little bit of overlap with Vince, but Vince will mainly be playing point guard behind him. So I don't know. I think I like him, but it just feels a little bit too expensive for me.
Yeah, I get that. I guess for me, it's just like there just aren't that many spend up options. So I can certainly tell myself a story on this slate where Collier is good at 8,200. I struggle to see like where he's like an absolute must play, which is probably what's going to keep me off. But like, I still think he's certainly viable, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really view anybody as like a must play in Utah right now, but I feel like the closest thing to that would be Filipowski.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we'll go to the game that has the highest total on the slate by a pretty wide margin. Was it 244 total, I believe, in this one? Yeah, 244. Miami favored by 3 on the road, back-to-back for Atlanta. And Miami's going to be as healthy as they've been the entire season. Tyler Hero's back, Norman Powell's in, Wiggins in, Pele Larse is back. Everybody else that had a Q tag, Drew Smith, Fontecchio, Jakashonis, Pele Larson, all these guys are in tonight. So that does make things a little bit tougher when considering any of these Miami guys, because I feel like when they were really healthy early in the season, you weren't seeing big minutes from any of these guys. Like we've seen a couple 37-minute games from Bam, seen like Wiggins go for pretty high minutes at times, but now it's probably going to be like a 32 to 34-minute ceiling cap on most of these guys, which is not good at these price tags. So as much as I love this game environment and I think the matchup is good for these guys, I'll be pretty low on Miami as a whole. The Atlanta stuff I think is worth talking through in depth though, because it's a back-to-back. This game is going to be fast-paced, high scoring, and we've seen some of these guys on Atlanta have success against Miami this season. Anything on Miami for you, or is it a pass also?
It's probably a pass, man. Just everything you said, and like Hero being back is big, and these guys were already like Miami. Hero has been out so long. Even if you take him out, Miami had been had so many guys in and out of their lineup that they're already too expensive outside of Hero. Then you bring Hero back in the mix, and it's like, man, it's tough to make a strong case for any of the Miami guys. Not to say that like none of them will get there. Certainly they have a bunch of players who are really good and they could all get there on any given game, but you're paying for it as far as DFS goes. So yeah, for me, and any, like if I'm playing one lineup, I can't make a case for someone from Miami.
Yeah. I'll probably keep 3 guys in my player pool for Miami, and that would be Bam, Norm, and Wiggins. So the guys that we have projected as the best, close enough to a 5 value score that I think that they can get there. Obviously, Bam has been playing great as of late, but I just don't know what the minutes will look like for him. I think maybe we look into an overtime game. It's a close enough spread, and then you get like 37, 38 minutes from Bam instead of the 33 to 32 that we'd normally be projecting, but tough to really to know if that's going to happen. Anything on Atlanta for you, though, because these guys are probably a little bit easier to get to.
Yeah, real quick before I say about Atlanta, I'm with you on Bam. I'd love to play Bam here. It's just, man, like, he's so expensive for who he is with them being healthy. Like, you're really kind of just throwing projections aside if you're like, I'm saying if you're like hand building a lineup playing him because he's just too expensive. But I do like the idea, especially on a slate like this. We talked about it earlier, maybe getting a little bit away from projections. This game could spike. So Bam would be my favorite piece. From the Atlanta side, it's Jalen Johnson is going to be the top dog. I mean, he's just a really good play pretty much always, especially on a slate like this, where he is the only guy over 10K. So there are some good 9K plus plays, but he's the best spend up option. We've got a ton of value. He's in a good spot. Really, really tough fade here. I think the ownership could get to a point where like you might want to consider it in any lineup. And there are, again, like, it's not just Harden who we like in the 9K range. We just mentioned Bam. There's Ant. Like, there are other good plays that you can spend up on, but Jalen Johnson's the best. I struggle to not play him. How do you see it?
Yeah, I do too. I kind of view it very similarly. Like, this would be a spot I'd try to poke some holes in. It's just really tough to, like, looking at some of the matchup data. They put Pelly Larson on him a lot, and it kind of feels like a spot they would go Wiggins more just because he matched up size and like agility and athleticism wise. I feel like it's more of like a Wiggins matchup, but he's cooked Wiggins. It's been like a handful of possessions. He's averaging 29 points per 75, 14.6 assists per 75. He's also averaging 58 DK points per game against Miami, and then 54 DraftKings points since the Trae Young trade. So we're getting a very good floor ceiling combination in Jalen Johnson. I think that he's just really tough to poke a lot of holes in. I would think like if the ownership really gets out of hand, then you could start to make a case for a fade or an underweight position in MME. Maybe in single entry, you fade him in like a couple, like if you're playing 3 different single entry contests, fade him in one of those. But you're going to have a ton of value at guard and small forward that it's going to be really tough to not land on him as your last man in. I mean, he's cooked Miami though. He's done really, really well against them. I just think that the play style, like the up-paced tempo that Miami is playing with this season, works great for Jalen Johnson. I've literally been beating that drum since I've been doing shows for Ship It. Like, anytime you get a pace up spot for Jalen Johnson, just play him because he's much better in those types of game environments.
I
been great backs as well.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying he's been really good in back-to-backs this season, so I'm not worried about the minutes at all, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, I struggle to see a game scenario here where like it's not a blowout and he plays full minutes and he's not at least good on this slate with how this slate is breaking down. At least good to probably be a must-needed play if this game is close and he plays full minutes.
Yeah. There's D coming in right on time with the back-to-back thing. I normally don't like that either, but Jalen Johnson's been pretty good on back-to-backs. I looked at the numbers. He's averaging 61 DK points per game in back-to-backs. Some of that is weighted by a huge game he had against Utah. He had 92 against them, but still been in like the mid to low 50s more often than not, and has had 60 plus a couple times. So he's been fine on back-to-backs. Any of these secondary guys for Atlanta catching your eye? NAW, CJ, Dyson, Okongwu, and Reese Shea is projecting decently well also.
Yeah, Reese Shea, cheap value play. Like, he was good yesterday. That feels chasey, but he's cheap and he gets you away from like the Memphis guys. So I could see that. NAW, sure. Like, this game should be really good from a DFS perspective. I like Atlanta more than Miami for sure, but I think the only guy that I'm going to prioritize right now is Jalen Johnson. You could sell me on NAW. I like Okongwu always. He's now priced to a point where I think you can strongly consider him. Dyson is also cheaper now. But you also throw like CJ McCollum in the mix. For me, I think it's just Jalen Johnson. How about you?
Yeah, I have a little bit of interest in NAW and CJ in particular. I don't think that this is a good Dyson Daniels spot. Last night was, and he just can't seem to get it done. Like, his offensive game is just non-existent. Really just become a defensive guy. But CJ's he's held really strong usage rates with Atlanta, starting to play more minutes. They'll probably end up closing with him too in a close game. And I think that if it's not Jalen Johnson beating them, you're going to need these perimeter scorers like NAW and CJ to get there. So I feel like Both those guys are in pretty good spots here. And CJ's just got better positionality and he's cheaper, so I'll prefer him. I think that the days have come and gone for Okongwu, unfortunately, as being a DFS play. They really like Jock Landale, and I think that he provides very similar skill set in the sense that he's a pretty solid rebounder, good enough three-point shooter where he can stretch the floor, and a decent enough defender that you don't really need to get like 36 minutes out of Okongwu anymore. If there's a situation where Okongwu were to miss, I would definitely be firing up Jock because he's looked pretty good in a Hawks uniform. All right. Anything else you want to add there? Or are we good to move on to Dallas and Minnesota?
No, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. So Dallas, Minnesota, 14-point favorites are Minnesota at home. No Cooper Flag in this one for the Mavericks, and we have a doubtful tag on the G Leaguers as well as Max Christie, so assume those guys will be out. Caleb Martin and Daniel Gafford are questionable. Minnesota is fully healthy. They just got Mike Conley back on the roster, so really good locker room presence, good morale boost there. I have some thoughts on the Dallas stuff, but I'll let you kick things off here. Brandon Williams showing up as a really strong value play and getting a lot of ownership, as well as Najee Marshall and PJ Washington a little bit. But yeah, anything that's sticking out to you on the Dallas side?
I do worry about this game getting out of hand, certainly. But that aside, and that price tags, I think Brandon Williams has got to at least be in play here. I mean, I like Small and Spencer more, I think, but Williams, 5,100, also both point guard and shooting guard eligible, like getting ownership, but I think for good reason. Like, I don't think he's some like play that you could never fade. It's Brandon Williams, but I think he looks good at this price tag, and I think he's too cheap for his role. Najee Marshall, I like him here. I played him a bunch, in spots like this. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. I talk about that all the time. Easy to roster, can just fit him anywhere. So it's them too. After that, it falls off a cliff for me on Dallas. Like, there's just no one else I really like here. You'd have to really talk me onto someone else outside of Williams and Marshall. And I don't even know if I like those two guys as much as the field does, but I still like them. How about you?
Yeah, you broke it down perfectly. That's kind of how I feel. I'll definitely be underweight on both Najee and Brandon Williams tonight. I just think that there's a lot of systemic risk for the Dallas team as a whole. I'm expecting a pretty big second half from Minnesota. They usually come out of the break rejuvenated, and I think that they're played well enough going into the All-Star break that they just start to steamroll some of these worse teams. You get Ayo Dosunmu back, who can really help the defensive unit in the non-Rudy Gobert minutes, and even alongside him, that can make things a little bit tougher on guards that they didn't really have. That kind of, I wouldn't say Ayo's a lockdown defender, but definitely better than what they had. But I mean, Minnesota being favored by 14 points, not a great team total for Dallas. Obviously, you could argue that the role is going to be really good for a guy like Brandon Williams. He led the team in touch time, drives, and potential assists last game that he started. But for whatever reason, Jason Kidd just does not like to play him a lot of minutes, and his upside is always going to be limited when that's the case. The most DK points he scored in a game this season was 38.5, and that was versus Utah. This is a different matchup. It's not as good of a matchup. I always think that he's a little bit overprojected by the industry. Like, does rate out really well as a permanent guy, but I'm not super confident in the minutes. Like, I like him a lot as a player, but I would rather get under the field and over on some of these other point guard shooting guards. Like, I like Cam Spencer a lot more. I agree with you on Javon Small being a better per dollar option at cheaper. And then there's even a guy on the Pelicans, Jeremiah Fears, that I like a ton more as well. So off of lower on Williams, I won't fade him, but I'll probably get half the field. If he's going to come in at 30 to 40%, like, I'll take 15 to 18% and kind of move on there. But I agree with you on Najee. I think that he's safe, like shooting guard, small forward, good positionality, going to have a good role. Will have the ball in his hands a ton and have a lot of scoring opportunity for as long as the game is close, but I just don't anticipate it being close. Would you have any interest in Marvin Bagley if Gafford gets ruled out?
Yeah, I think at that point, like, you can look at Bagley. He seems pretty game script proof. Yeah, like, I would have no issues with that at 4,400. I think he would be a totally fine play because, again, as much as I'm worried about the Dallas side with things getting wonky in this game, I think Bagley is, again, game script proof and could easily clean up in a blowout. So I think that's a good shout out. And yeah, like, just to add on to everything you said about, like, just the positional scarcity that is the guard spot here. Like Williams looks good, but we talked about Spencer and Small, obviously, but then also like we talked about James Harden. We will get to Fears. Talked about Kadari Richmond. Like there are only so many guards you can play. So I'm with you. Like knowing that and knowing the ownership specifically or especially, I think Williams is an interesting fade candidate. There's KPJ. There's a bunch of good guards on this slate. I don't know if I want to play into like huge Brandon Williams chalk. I can dig that.
Yeah. It kind of just feels like the guy that we say it's like he's got hypothetical upside, but it just hasn't really come to fruition a lot.
Sounds
of
like Evan Mobley to me.
Yeah. Unless he's playing like the Pacers, I feel like he always cooks them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Gafford's out, I mean, Bagley's got to be in play. They will not have the G Leaguer, so Musa Cisse. I love him, but he will not be playing tonight. So it'd be Dwight Powell and Bagley cleaning up most of the center minutes, if not all of them. Maybe PJ gets a handful of them, but I wouldn't think so. Minnesota side, we have a lot of value tonight, so you're going to be getting to Ant and Julius Randle. I think both of them are very, very much in play. I don't really have anything negative to poke about them. I think that the matchup could get really good for Ant if Caleb Martin were to miss. Don't really think anybody views Caleb Martin as like a lockdown defender by any means, but he's probably the last guy standing as like a good on-ball presence guy. I think that's going to be PJ on Randall regardless. So if it's Najee on Ant, I like that matchup a ton for him. So I'll be keeping an eye on the Caleb Martin news if he gets ruled out. And I think it's got to be one of the better spend up options. But I think Randall's great as well. He's been really good against the Mavericks this season. Is he? I feel like he's from Dallas.
Yes, he is.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not a hometown game for him, but probably likes to go up against his former team regardless. But yeah, he was playing great coming into the All-Star break, 57.5 and 55 DK points in his 2 games prior. Really weak rim defense on the Dallas side, so he'll have little to no resistance scoring the ball. Been playing him. I usually don't play Randall because I just think that he's a little bit overpriced for like his floor ceiling combo, but have been playing him a lot more recently, so I'll definitely get to some of him tonight. One guy I do like a lot, though, is Naz Reid. I mean, he's cooked Dallas this season. He's averaging 22.5 points per game, 10 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and 43.3 DK points per game. So I like Naz a good bit at low ownership. Don't really think I'll get to too much Rudy tonight. Don't think that they'll really need his defensive presence as much. But what do you got in Minnesota?
I like Randall a lot here. Between him and Ant, I think I prefer Randall just because of the positionality there. Like we talked about so many guards we like. Randall's just easier to fit. The price tag doesn't really do much for me here, like the price difference, just because it's an easy slate to spend on who you want. But how many guards I like really affects me liking Randall over Ant here. I like both a lot. They should both cook. If Dallas can just keep this game somewhat competitive, then I think they both have big upside here. I love the Naz Reid call. Thoughts on playing Reid and Randall together and hoping that it's kind of a like X Gobert out of this game type of night.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I actually think that's a totally fine option here because Rudy's going to be out there when they need his defense against an actual good center. Like they don't need him against Gafford and Bagley and Powell. Like they'll be fine with Naz and Randall.
I'm with that.
All right, I think that does it for that one. A game that probably will not take a lot of time to break down. Brooklyn at OKC. I mean, for me, it's just I'm doing that Xing out Brooklyn. Don't think that you need to go there, but if you wanted to play some of these guys, we have Sharp projecting as a positive value. Traore projects okay. I'd probably like Traore the most, but you're comparing him to a lot of these guards that we've already talked about and we'll talk about later. So no Brooklyn for me tonight. I think more often than not, you're better off fading them. So that's my thoughts there. But if you want to add anything else, if not, break down OKC for us.
Yeah, Sharp is like a little bit intriguing from like an upside tournament perspective because we've seen it, right? And like he's not going to get ownership, but doesn't project well. Minutes don't project well. Like this game could easily get real out of hand. So I struggle to like commit to Sharp here. If I were playing 150, he might be a guy I'd want to be over the field on because he's getting such low ownership, but that's it from Brooklyn. Like that's literally it for me. The Traore stuff I can't do on this slate because of the guard position and just this matchup for Brooklyn. OKC, I don't really love them either. Like they're in a much better spot than Brooklyn and they should cook Brooklyn here. But again, for me, as someone who's playing limited lineups here, I I don't think I'll get to anything from this game. Certainly not Brooklyn. And honestly, like OKC, I think I'm good on. Do you like them more than me?
A little bit, but I'm playing more lineups. So that's the only reason. I probably would not come up
Sure.
in single entry with any guys in this game personally, but have a little bit of interest in Jared McCain because I think that he will be in the blowout lineup regardless. We know for sure that it's not going to be – there'll be no Chet, no Hardenstein, probably no Case and Wallace now that they're a little bit more healthy, no Lou Dort, no Caruso. So that leaves you with like 6 guys that will have to play. Topic, Buddy Boeheim, and Brooks Barnhizer are 3 guys that they could play, but I doubt Topic is playing in a blowout just because he's returning from literal cancer treatment and is not ready to play a lot of minutes yet. I feel like one of these guys between Brooks and Boeheim play, if not both. So there's like Jalen Williams, Kenrich Williams, McCain, Wiggins, and Joe. To me, Joe and Wiggins have long-term value for OKC, so I don't think that those guys play, and kind of feel the same about Kenrich. So I feel like you're getting McCain in the blowout lineup, and that rotation, he's going to be in the rotation regardless, so it's kind of the perfect storm for him. So I'll definitely get some McCain because we know that he can produce a ton of real points in a very short amount of time. I mean, against a Brooklyn team, like definitely sign me up for some Jared McCain.
Yeah, no, I think that the point you made at the very end about how he's going to be in the rotation regardless is the main one, because I don't want to be just searching for guys that are going to play in the blowout and not get there, like have no chance of get there if the game doesn't blow out, because, you know, Brooklyn is still an NBA team sort of. So like, you know, if we're talking about like the Buddy Boeheims and Brooke Barnhizers of the world playing in like the third quarter, it'd have to be like a 30-40 point game. And just, I'm never going to project that. So it's tough to get to anything on OKC. I like the McCain shout out, like just because he does have like alternate paths to get there. Like certainly he's much more likely if the game blows out, but there are scenarios like where he hits 5 threes and the game doesn't blow out and he gets there, or he's at least good anyways. So I think that'd be the guy for me too.
Yeah, I mean, they traded real draft capital to get him. Like if anything, you want to get him acclimated to the system, acclimated to playing more minutes, because he's been out of the rotation for Philly for most of the season. So maybe they just want to get a longer look at him regardless. So do like Jared McCain a good bit here. No way OKC wins by 30 without SGA. I mean, they're playing Brooklyn, so I don't think that it's without of the realm of possibilities. They're still a really good team. All right, Milwaukee at New Orleans Pelicans. Definitely have a lot of interest in this game. I feel like this is one similar to Cleveland and Charlotte in some ways, where you have some spend-up options on both sides. And it's going to be a close enough game where we get full minutes. I don't think either of these teams are actively trying to lose games. Like Milwaukee is not technically out of the playoff race, and Giannis has said he wants to come back, and New Orleans is definitely trying to win games because they don't even have their pick, so they're going to be playing things straight up. But yeah, lots to like about this game. I'll let you kick things off for us in this one. Last time these teams played, 137-141, Milwaukee came away with the win in overtime. Huge Trey Murphy game there, but he will be out tonight.
I think this is my favorite game on the slate, all things considered. Like, I like Memphis and Utah, but there's so much ugliness in that game, so much just unknown, that while I'll play a bunch there, this is my favorite game on the slate to get actual real pieces from. I like the New Orleans side more. I like the matchup, and especially now with Trey Murphy out. But from the Milwaukee side, like KPJ, I think looks really, really good here. Again, I like this game a lot. I'm going to be playing a bunch of New Orleans. I don't have to run it back with someone from Milwaukee, but I'd like to, and he's by far my favorite guy. Point guard and shooting guard eligible. When games are close and he's getting his full run, he just is usually almost always going to get there. Certainly no guarantee, no one is, but I love his floor ceiling combination in a game that I expect to be competitive and high scoring. So I like KPJ a lot. After that, from Milwaukee, like, it would just be guys because I like this game environment a lot, but KPJ is the only real priority. From the Pelican side, though, I like Fears a ton, as you mentioned, especially as like a pivot off of Brandon Williams at basically the same tag, a little bit cheaper. So I love that shout out. Fears I like a lot here. And then I like Tara Queen a lot here. No Missy, great matchup, 6K. We saw some big Derek Queen games like earlier on in the year. I think we could get back to that here. I like Queen and Fears. They're 2 rookies a ton here. Zion in play, but like I'm never excited about playing him these days. Sadiq Bey, I like him a lot as a player. I like him in this spot, depending on how deep you want to go on New Orleans. I think he's wildly in play. But Fears and I think Queen are priorities for me. Bey and Zion, guys that I could strongly consider in any given lineup. And then KPJ from the Milwaukee side. How about yourself?
Yeah, speaking my language with this game. I am pretty much, I'm right in line with you. I think KPJ, hands down the best option on the Bucks side. Came into the break with a lot of momentum, increased usage role, increased ball handling role, averages 19.8, 8.4 assists, 6 rebounds per game over his last 5, 15.4 potential assists. Anytime him and Rollins are sharing the court together, it's him that has the much better role. I think just Doc Rivers loves him, and we've seen him play a ton of minutes at times. His three-point shot has been really bad lately, shooting just 11% over his last 5. But even if that regresses to like his baseline, which is around 36%, this could be a huge game for KPJ. So I'm with you there. Love the matchup for Bobby Portis and Sims, but I just don't know if we're getting enough out of either of those guys. Like we've seen Bobby Portis have huge games. He's kind of like Naz Reid, but a little bit more expensive. I think Ousmane Dieng is worth being in player pools, though. I think that they really like him. He got a ton of praise from Doc Rivers after the OKC game. He's kind of always been –
and that was insane.
Yeah, it was a huge game for him. He was great. But he's like always been a pretty talented NBA player. Like I thought that he was good enough to have a role, but it's just tough when you're in OKC. Like they have so many guys, so it's just tough for him to kind of separate there. But I think that he's going to find a real role with the Bucks, and I think he's just better overall than like Kuzma and AJ Green, whoever else they're going to be putting at the forward spot. You have anything you want to add there? I'll go to the Pels if not.
No, I was just thinking like to myself after this game, and then right now, as you mentioned it, that Ousmane Dieng game like reminded me of when Christian Wood came out of nowhere and had a monster game for the Pelicans, like, man, years ago, like before he was even a thing, but like just like absolute monsters. That was impressive, man. Like that was really impressive.
Yeah. Definitely a lot of motivation went into that one. I mean, he won a championship with OKC, but it's like anytime you're playing against your forward team, I think that you kind of get up for the game a little bit more, especially when the trade was like so fresh. It was like literally like a couple days after it happened.
And I don't even think it's like I know people like to say revenge. I think it's more like in life, like in anything, you're going to have a little more pep in your step when you're like going back to your old stomping grounds. Like I know I have. So like, it's just natural. Can we get a similar performance from Taylor Hendricks tonight? That's my question to you.
I think so. This isn't his first game back in Utah because it's at Memphis, but I think it's within. Like, I would not be surprised if we see him as the guy that sees the most minutes, not on the team, but like in that forward spot. If he plays like 28 to 30, definitely has a case. He's a 3-and-D guy, and he's been actually shooting the ball pretty well this season. Utah gives a ton of threes, so like I don't think that it's without of the realm of possibilities. I couldn't find any matchup data on Zion. I don't really know who they were putting on him. It's probably going to be Kuzma or Jericho Sims, but either way, I think it's a really good spot for him. He does see a pretty big usage rate increase as what we would expect with Murphy off the court, but he's just under 30%. Not great per minute numbers, just 1.22 this season, but over the last 2, he's been more in line with what we've kind of know to expect from Zion, 1.4 fantasy points per minute without Murphy and some of these other guys off the court. I agree with you on Queen. Like I think that he's probably my favorite center option though at 6K. I'm really interested to see what the second half of the season looks like for him.
Same.
He needs to give more effort on defense. Like he's just he falls asleep at times. He just needs to. That's just when he gets pulled is when he's not giving effort. I don't think that there's enough guys on the Bucks side that can really expose him, especially at the center position. Like maybe Sims, just because he has such a athletic advantage over him and can get those like alley-oop dunks from KPJ and Rollins. But I think for the most part, his minutes should be pretty secure. Obviously, no Missy tonight. He's averaging 29 minutes per game without Missy this season in 9 games. So the minutes are solid. It's pretty much just Kevon Looney behind him. Maybe they get Metkovic behind him, but I think that they like Carlo behind Zion. So I feel pretty good about Queen's minutes. And you said it, like we've seen some huge upside, triple-double upside from Queen. Like I really like his game. Just love that prototype of center, like the Sengun, Jokic, Sabonis, like the guys that can run offense through them. And it's a good matchup for him. So I like him. And then Sadiq Bey going to be jumping up in the pecking order on offense. good for his skill set. This matchup, the Bucks have been bleeding 3-pointers as of late, so could be a spot where he puts up 30 real ones, like 10 threes, not 10 made threes, but he's probably going to get a ton of volume. Like I think he's probably shooting the ball 10 plus times from beyond the arc. And then Fierce, too, another guy that I'm excited to see the second half of the season because he came into the All-Star break playing really well. I think he's got a lot of momentum. He's really settling into the role off the bench, which is kind of rare. It's a guy that they drafted so high that's been willing to take on a smaller role off the bench, but he's really embraced it, and he's done great. Back-to-back games with 37 and 44 DK points. He's averaging right around 30 minutes per game without Murphy this season, but I really think that he's got upside for more here. And then last guy I'll mention, like Herb Jones, if you need a cheap forward, would not expect much of a role change for him, but he's in play. It's not great. Anything else from that game or anything else from the slate as a whole?
I think you made a really good point about Queen, kind of adding on to what I said. Like, I'm worried about him in spots where like his opposition is a really good offensive player because it's easy for him to get cooked. This is just not the spot for that. Like, if he's just giving it up to Jericho Sims, like, I'll play tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, I get your point. Like, Sims certainly could get to him with his aggressiveness and just athleticness, but he needs to just dominate offensively here. And I think that's a really good possibility tonight. And he's only 6K. So, yeah, we see that similarly. This game just has a lot of DFS appeal. All over. Is there anyone else from Milwaukee outside of KPJ that, like, you would consider a priority or no?
No, nothing else is a priority, but I would say have a little bit of interest in Usman Jang, especially in game stacks. Like if I wanted like 4 guys in this game, I don't think I'd want 3 Pelicans. Like I'd rather have Fears plus Queen and then KPJ and Jang because you're dodging some of the really good positions that way. Like I still want to save spots for another guard, another util, and then like maybe getting up to Jalen Johnson or something like that.
Yeah. And just kind of going back a little bit to the Memphis stuff, like I do think like from a value perspective, Small looks better than Spencer, but I also think with how this slate plays out and just there not being that many spend up options, like I get more now why you have Spencer over Small. Like if we had Jokic and a couple other like really expensive guys that we really wanted to play, Small might just be the better play because of its price tag, but that's not necessarily the case here. So I view them more evenly as I did earlier in the show.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like thinking in my head, like talking through Anthony Edwards, because I think that there's a good chance he's going to be very good tonight. If he's not great and going for like 60 plus, does he really become the guy that you had to have? Like if he goes for 50 and we get like Cam Spencer realistically could go for like 45, like Javon Small could go for 35. Like they're just better points per dollar ceiling plays than Ant in that sense. And the same goes for everybody else, like LaMelo, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell. Like all these guys could be better from what it unlocks your roster. So I think that's just kind of a thing that people need to be thinking through tonight when choosing who you're going to be playing at these different positions. All right. Yeah, I think that's going to do it then. Great show as always. Went a little bit overboard, hour 15, but did spend some time talking through just the state of the NBA in the beginning, which is always a good time. Yeah, I enjoyed doing the show with you as always, coming into the slate with a clearer head. I'll be getting the slate plan up here pretty soon, but yeah, any closing thoughts here?
No, always a blast, man. Happy you were able to fill in for Ham. I got his stuff covered tomorrow, so we'll have that out in the morning, at least the solo video, and the slate plan. It kind of is timed out, and we'll see how the day goes as far as the news and stuff we get. But yeah, man. And then next week, excited to get back at it for a full week of NBA. And that's all I got, I think.
Yeah, you said it. Obviously, football is done now, but sports are still going on. We got MMA, really good card this weekend. I believe 14 fights. Obviously, got all the PJ stuff going.
MLB spring training started today.
Yeah, spring training. I saw Pete Alonso hit a bomb for the Orioles. But yeah, baseball's right around the corner, so we'll be gearing up for that pretty soon. I will actually be boots on the ground tomorrow at Genesis. I'm taking my mom out there tomorrow. I'm gonna spend the day and watch some golfers. Hoping, I don't know where Scotty's at now, but I'm hoping that he's gonna sneak into the cut line because last time I checked he was +1, and I think the cut line might be -1. So definitely need him to pick up these last few holes. But all right, that's going to do it. Matt will be back tomorrow with the content, and then I will see Matt again on Wednesday, but we'll be back to regular scheduling next week. Good luck tonight, everybody. Catch you later. Let me get this outro set up. All right.